Commander Vex'tar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable conquest, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. Around him, his command crew worked with the practiced efficiency of a species that had conquered 47 star systems without breaking a sweat. Well, without breaking whatever aliens had instead of sweat. The point was, they were very good at this whole galactic domination thing. "Sir, we've reached optimal bombardment distance," announced his weapons officer, Lieutenant Crix N. "All planet killer cannons are charged and ready." Vex'tar allowed himself a small smile. Earth looked so peaceful from up here, spinning lazily in space like a blue marble some cosmic child had forgotten to put away. In approximately 10 minutes, it would be a smoking ruin populated only by the charred remains of humanity's pathetic civilization. "Target their major population centers," Vex'tar commanded, his voice carrying the weight of inevitable victory. "New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. Let them witness the fury of the Galactic Council before they die." The bombardment began with a spectacular light show. Beams of concentrated energy, each one capable of vaporizing a small moon, lanced down from the fleet and struck Earth's surface. The explosions bloomed like deadly flowers across the planet's face, each one representing the end of millions of human lives. Or so Commander Vex'tar thought. "Sir," came a hesitant voice from the communications station. "We're receiving transmissions from the surface." "Excellent," Vex'tar purred. "Are they begging for mercy already?" "Humans are even weaker than our intelligence reports suggested." The communications officer, Sub-Commander Cleet, looked genuinely confused. "Well, sir, not exactly. This is from something called the New York Department of Transportation. They're asking if we could adjust our bombardment schedule because we've apparently caused significant traffic delays on the Brooklyn Bridge." Vex'tar blinked. "Traffic delays?" "Yes, sir. They're particularly concerned about rush-hour commuters. There's also a message from the London Metropolitan Police asking if we could provide advance notice of future attacks so they can redirect traffic accordingly." "But we just vaporized half their city." "Actually, sir," piped up the sensor operator, "scans show minimal casualties. It appears most humans evacuated to underground transit tunnels. They're asking when service will resume to the surface stations." Vex'tar stared at the tactical display. Where he expected to see mass panic and civilizational collapse, the sensors showed orderly queues of humans waiting patiently at what appeared to be subway entrances. Many were checking small handheld devices and muttering about delayed appointments. "Perhaps they don't understand the gravity of their situation," Vex'tar said, his confidence wavering slightly. "Open a channel to all Earth communication networks." The main screen flickered to life, showing Vex'tar in all his 7-foot-tall, 4-armed, terrifyingly magnificent alien glory. "People of Earth," he began, his voice booming across every television, radio, and smartphone on the planet. "I am Commander Vex'tar of the Galactic Council's enforcement fleet. Your world has been judged unworthy of independence. Surrender now, or face total annihilation." There was a pause. Then responses started flooding in. "Is this some kind of marketing campaign?" came one voice. "The CGI is pretty good, but the makeup could use work," critiqued another. "Sir," reported Cleet, his voice increasingly strained, "we're receiving over 3 million responses. Most are asking if this is viral marketing for a new movie. Several are offering to help with our production budget in exchange for speaking roles." One particularly clear transmission cut through the chatter. "Hello, alien person. This is Margaret from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Could you possibly move your ships? They're blocking my satellite TV reception, and I'm missing my stories." Commander Vex'tar felt something he hadn't experienced since his academy days. Doubt. He turned to his intelligence officer. "Cleet, review our data on human psychology. Are they capable of this level of whatever this is?" "According to our files, sir, humans should be cowering in terror. They're supposed to be a young species, barely capable of interplanetary travel. Primitive weapons, simple social structures, easily conquered." Another transmission crackled through the speakers. "Hey, space guys, welcome to Earth. If you're looking for parking, you might want to try the far side of the moon. It's free, and there's usually plenty of spots." Captain Jake Morrison sat in his office at the Pentagon, feet up on his desk, watching the alien broadcast with the same expression most people reserved for particularly boring insurance commercials. His coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago, but he couldn't be bothered to get up for a refill. Not when entertainment this good was being delivered straight to his door. Sir, his aide, Lieutenant Parker, burst through the door with what could generously be called urgency. The aliens are demanding our immediate surrender. Morrison glanced at his watch. Took them longer than expected. The betting pool had them making ultimatums within the first hour. He pressed his intercom button. "Jenny, did we win anything in the alien invasion pool?" His secretary's voice crackled back. "You had them demanding surrender at 0900 hours, sir. Current time is 0847. Stay close, but Private Henderson wins with his 0845 prediction." "Damn. Remind me to congratulate Henderson when this is all over." Morrison finally stood up, stretching. "Might as well go talk to our new visitors. Parker, get me a line to whoever's in charge up there." Within minutes, Morrison found himself face to face with Commander Vex'tar via video conference. The alien leader looked exactly like Hollywood had been predicting for decades, tall, imposing, with too many arms and an unfortunate tendency toward dramatic pauses. A human military leader. Vex'tar intoned, "I assume you understand the hopelessness of your situation." Morrison scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Well, Commander, sorry, what was your name again?" "Vex'tar." "Commander Vex'tar of the Galactic." "Right. Vex'tar. Listen, Vex, can I call you Vex? Here's the thing. We're going to need to see some paperwork." The alien commander's expression suggested this wasn't going according to script. "Paperwork?" "Oh yeah, absolutely. You can't just roll up to a sovereign planet and start making demands without proper documentation. There's a whole process. Environmental impact statements, invasion permits, that sort of thing. Have you filed your Form 27B with the United Nations?" "Form? What?" Meanwhile, 300 miles away, Dr. Elena Vasquez was having the time of her life. As Earth's chief xenobiology researcher, she'd spent 15 years preparing for exactly this moment. Well, not exactly this moment. She'd expected the aliens to be marginally more competent. "Fascinating," she murmured, studying the readouts from the orbital bombardment. "Their energy weapons operate on a completely different principle than we theorized. The efficiency is terrible, though. They're wasting at least 60% of their power output." Her research assistant, Dr. Martinez, looked up from his own console. "Should we be more concerned about, the invasion part?" "Oh, that?" Vasquez waved dismissively. "Morrison's handling the politics. I'm much more interested in their propulsion systems. Look at these signatures. They're using some kind of gravitational manipulation. But it's so crude. It's like watching someone try to perform brain surgery with a sledgehammer." Back in orbit, Sub-Commander Cleet was having what his species might generously call a nervous breakdown. The communication intercepts were getting worse. "Sir, we're receiving thousands of messages from the planet's surface. The humans appear to be rating our invasion performance." "Rating us?" "Yes, sir. Current average is 2.3 out of 5 stars. Their common complaints include lack of originality, poor special effects, and needs more explosions. One reviewer noted that our ship designs are derivative of Independence Day, but without the charm." Commander Vex'tar felt one of his auxiliary hearts skip a beat. What about their military response? Surely they're mobilizing their armed forces. "That's complicated, sir. According to our intercepts, their military is currently in what they call Condition Yellow." "What does that mean?" "As far as I can determine, sir, it means slightly elevated awareness, but no immediate action required. It's the same alert level they use for severe weather warnings." On Earth, Captain Morrison was wrapping up his video call with increasingly satisfying results. "So to summarize, Vex, you'll need to file your invasion paperwork with the UN, get your environmental impact assessments approved by the EPA, and don't even get me started on the FAA violations. Your ships are in restricted airspace without proper clearance. But we're conquering you." Vex'tar protested. "I understand that. and we appreciate the heads up, but we still have procedures to follow. Tell you what, though I'll expedite the paperwork if you can move your ships about 50 miles to the southwest. You're interfering with air traffic control at Newark. The call ended with Commander Vex'tar staring at a blank screen, trying to process what had just happened. In 47 successful invasions, no one had ever asked him to file paperwork. Sir, Cleet ventured hesitantly, should we proceed to Phase 2 of the invasion protocol? Vex'tar looked around his bridge, noting the confused expressions of his crew. They'd trained for resistance, for desperate last stands, for the glorious fury of battle. They had not trained for, whatever this was. Yes, he said finally. Initiate Phase 2. Begin the systematic destruction of their infrastructure. That should get their attention. Sub-Commander Cleet had been having a very long day, and it was barely noon by Earth standards. As Commander Vex'tar's Chief Intelligence Officer, it was his job to identify and exploit enemy weaknesses. The problem was, humans seemed to have an endless supply of weaknesses that somehow weren't actually weaknesses at all. Sir, he reported to Vex'tar, his tentacles twitching with barely suppressed frustration. I've completed the analysis of human vulnerabilities. Excellent. What are their critical dependencies? Cleet consulted his datapad. Well, sir, they require constant access to oxygen to survive. Cut off their air supply, and they'll suffocate within minutes. Perfect. What else? They need regular consumption of water, approximately 2 liters per day per individual. Without it, they'll die within 3 days. Even better. Air. They also require regular intake of organic matter, what they call food. Without it, they'll perish within weeks. Commander Vex'tar allowed himself a genuine smile for the first time since arriving at Earth. Finally, we have them. These humans are even more fragile than our preliminary reports suggested. Target their water treatment facilities, their food distribution networks, and their atmospheric processors. Sir, they don't actually have atmospheric processors. They rely on plant life to maintain their oxygen levels. Then target their forests. This will be easier than the conquest of Rigel VE. The order went out, and the Galactic Council fleet began systematically targeting Earth's infrastructure. Water treatment plants, electrical grids, supply chains, everything that should have brought human civilization to its knees within hours. On Earth, the response was characteristically underwhelming. Dr. Elena Vasquez was in her laboratory, calmly sipping coffee while watching live feeds of the alien attacks. Oh good, she murmured. They're targeting infrastructure now. That's much more tactically sound than random bombardment. Her assistant looked alarmed. Dr. Vasquez, shouldn't we be evacuating? They just knocked out the eastern seaboard's power grid. Martinez, relax. The backup systems kicked in 12 seconds ago. Did you know their targeting computers have a reaction delay of 0.3 seconds? That's terrible for military hardware. Our defense networks compensated almost immediately. Defense networks. Oh, did no one mention those? We've had redundant systems for everything since the Cold War. The aliens are basically playing whack-a-mole with decoy targets while the real infrastructure runs on completely separate networks. Across the country, Captain Morrison was fielding increasingly frantic calls from Commander Vex'tar. Captain Morrison, your species will die without water. We have destroyed your treatment facilities. Morrison glanced out his window at the Potomac River, flowing peacefully by. That's rough. Vex, really inconsiderate of you. Though I have to ask, did your intelligence briefing mention that 71% of our planet's surface is water? But without processing facilities. We'll have to use our backup facilities and our mobile processing units, and the emergency reserves. And, well, there's this whole thing called boiling water that we figured out a few thousand years ago. There was a pause. What about your food supplies? We have severed your distribution networks. Oh no, Morrison said in a tone that suggested he was anything but concerned. However will we survive without the ability to transport food from one place to another? If only humans had developed some method for producing food locally or storing it for extended periods. or any of the 1,000 other food-related technologies we've been perfecting since we invented agriculture. On the alien flagship, Cleet was beginning to suspect that their intelligence reports might have been incomplete. Sir, the humans appear to have what they call contingency plans for every system we've targeted. How is that possible? According to intercepted communications, they've been preparing for something called zombie apocalypse scenarios for decades. Apparently, they consider total infrastructure collapse to be a form of entertainment. The Commander Vex'tar's headache was getting worse. What do you mean? Entertainment? They have entire industries dedicated to imagining worst-case scenarios, sir. Movies, books, games, all focused on survival situations. They've essentially turned disaster preparedness into a hobby. As if to emphasize the point, a new transmission came through from Earth. Hey alien folks, this is Dave from Phoenix. Just wanted to thank you for finally giving me a chance to use my emergency water purification system. I've been waiting 15 years for an excuse to break that thing out of storage. Works great. By the way, you might want to invest in some better intel next time. Another voice chimed in. This is Rebecca from Vermont. Your attack on our food distribution really motivated me to start that victory garden I've been planning. Already got potatoes and carrots growing. Should have enough to feed the neighborhood by next month. Vex'tar turned to his intelligence officer with growing desperation. Tell me we have some good news. Cleet consulted his readings. Well, sir, we've definitely inconvenienced them. Traffic is still snarled in several major cities, and some humans had to use backup power for their entertainment systems. That's it? Oh, and we've apparently motivated them to implement something they call Phase 2 protocols. I'm not sure what that means, but they seem quite excited about it. Down on Earth, Captain Morrison was indeed excited. He turned to Lieutenant Parker with the first genuine smile he'd worn all day. And Parker, go ahead and notify all department heads. We're transitioning from practice mode to active status. Sir, should I inform the aliens about the status change? Morrison considered this. You know what? Let's let that be a surprise. Commander Vex'tar was beginning to understand why the Galactic Council typically avoided planets in this particular spiral arm of the galaxy. There was something fundamentally wrong with the humans' approach to being conquered. Status report, he commanded, though he was beginning to dread the answers. Sub-Commander Cleet reported, we've successfully disrupted approximately 40% of their surface infrastructure. Finally, some progress. And their response? They've adapted, sir. Completely. It's as if they were expecting us to do exactly what we did. On the main screen, Earth continued spinning peacefully. If anything, it looked more organized than before. Lights twinkled in orderly patterns across the night side. Transportation moved in efficient flows, and their communication networks buzzed with activity. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving another transmission from Captain Morrison. Morrison's face appeared on screen, looking remarkably relaxed for someone whose planet was supposedly under siege. Hey there, Vex. How's the conquering business going? Your civilization should be collapsing. Vex'tar snarled. We've severed your supply lines, disrupted your power grids, contaminated your water supplies. Yeah, about that, Morrison said, pulling out what appeared to be a sandwich. Thanks for the motivation. We've been meaning to stress test our emergency protocols for years, but you know how bureaucracy works. Hard to get approval for that kind of drill during peacetime. Emergency protocols? Oh, sure. We've got contingencies for pretty much everything. Asteroid impact, solar flares, supervolcanic eruptions, zombie apocalypse, alien invasion, the whole 9 yards. Though I have to say, you guys are being a lot more polite about it than we expected. Dr. Elena Vasquez chose that moment to enter the frame, carrying what appeared to be a complex piece of alien technology. Captain Morrison, I hate to interrupt, but I wanted to thank the commander for the research samples. Vex'tar felt his blood pressure spike. Research samples? Oh yes, Vasquez said cheerfully. The debrief from your attacks has been incredibly informative. We've learned so much about your alloy compositions, energy weapons, and propulsion systems. This power cell alone has advanced our fusion research by at least a decade. You're studying our technology? Well, obviously. Did you think we'd just ignore it? This is the greatest scientific opportunity in human history. We've got teams reverse engineering everything you've thrown at us. Morrison nodded approvingly. Dr. Vasquez has been having a field day. Elena, why don't you tell the commander about your findings? Vasquez lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Oh, where do I start? Your energy weapons are fascinating, but incredibly inefficient. You're losing massive amounts of power to heat dissipation. And your ship hulls, the metallurgy is sophisticated. But the design principles are completely backwards. You're prioritizing aesthetics over functionality. But you're primitives. Vex'tar protested. Your technology is centuries behind ours. In some areas, sure, Morrison acknowledged, but in others, not so much. Elena, tell him about the manufacturing. Oh, that's the best part, Vasquez said, practically bouncing with excitement. Your ships are clearly handcrafted, a beautiful workmanship, really, but completely impractical for mass production. We've been 3D printing replacement parts for your technology faster than you've been destroying our facilities. Vex'tar looked around his bridge, noting that his crew was listening to this conversation with growing alarm. Sir, Cleet whispered, perhaps we should inform them of our superior numbers. Morrison seemed to hear this. Oh, you mean your fleet? Yeah, we counted. 1,200 ships, roughly 8 million crew members total. That's actually smaller than we prepared for. Smaller than you prepared for? The simulation model suggested you'd bring at least twice that number. We've got defensive measures scaled for fleets up to 20,000 ships. This is actually kind of disappointing. Dr. Vasquez nodded seriously. We were hoping for a more comprehensive technology sample. 1,200 ships barely gives us enough data points for a proper analysis. Sir, another voice called from off-screen, should I activate the orbital manufacturing platforms? Might as well, Morrison replied. And go ahead and bring the backup colonies online. No point keeping them on standby if we're not going to need them. Vex'tar's world was spinning. Backup colonies? Mars, Europa, Titan, a few dozen others scattered around local space. We'd been building them for years, just in case Earth became uninhabitable. Asteroid impact, climate change, alien invasion, the usual threats. You have interplanetary colonies? Oh, those aren't the interplanetary ones. Those are just the local backups. The interplanetary colonies are in other star systems entirely. Morrison checked his watch. Actually, they should be getting our distress signal right about now. Response time is usually 4 to 6 hours, depending on current stellar positions. Response time for what? The cavalry, obviously. Did you really think we'd keep all our eggs in one planetary basket? That would be terribly short-sighted. Vex'tar slumped in his command chair, a gesture that would have been undignified if anyone had been keeping track of dignity at this point. Dr. Vasquez, Morrison continued, why don't you show the commander your latest project? Vasquez held up what was unmistakably a miniaturized version of the alien's own weapons technology. I've been working on improving the efficiency of your energy weapons. The power output can be increased by roughly 300% with some relatively minor modifications. You've weaponized our own technology against us? Weaponized? Oh no, Commander. This is still just the research phase. Captain Morrison glanced at his watch and sighed. It was 1,400 hours local time, which meant he'd been dealing with this invasion for exactly 5 hours and 14 minutes. In that time, the aliens had managed to inconvenience roughly 0.3% of Earth's population, mostly by causing traffic delays. All right, Vex, he said, addressing the increasingly haggard alien commander. I hate to cut this short, but we've got a schedule to keep. A schedule? Oh yeah, we always time these things. The Joint Chiefs get cranky if we let practice exercises run over their allocated timeframes. On the alien flagship, Commander Vex'tar was experiencing what his species called existential recalibration, which was roughly equivalent to a human having their entire worldview destroyed and rebuilt in the span of a single afternoon. Practice exercises? Dr. Vasquez popped back into frame, now wearing what appeared to be a lab coat covered in equations. Captain Morrison, I finished the preliminary analysis. Their fleet's total offensive capability is approximately equivalent to what we classified as a moderate threat scenario. How moderate? At somewhere between solar flare and large asteroid. Definitely manageable. Morrison nodded. Thanks, Elena. Vex, I hope you don't take this personally, but we're going to need to wrap this up. Dr. Vasquez has learned everything she can from your current tech level, and frankly, you're not presenting much of a challenge. Not much of a challenge? Vex'tar's voice cracked slightly. Well, no. I mean, you've been throwing your best shots at us for hours, and we barely had to activate our basic defensive systems. It's like watching someone try to knock down a skyscraper with a slingshot. As if summoned by Morrison's words, new contacts began appearing on the alien fleet's sensors. Dozens of them, emerging from what appeared to be empty space. Sir, the alien sensor operator called out, his voice tight with panic, massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. Unknown ship configurations, technology levels significantly advanced from planetary norms. Vex'tar looked at the tactical display and felt his remaining confidence evaporate entirely. The new ships were sleek, efficient, and absolutely bristling with weapons that made his planet-killer cannons look like children's toys. Captain Morrison, he said carefully, what exactly are those? Oh, those? That's the local defense fleet. They were running exercises in the outer system when you showed up. Took them a while to get here. Local defense fleet? Yeah, just the Earth-based ships. The real fleet is still about 3 hours out. Sub-Commander Cleet was frantically running calculations on his tactical computer. Sir, the energy output from a single one of those ships exceeds our entire fleet's combined firepower. How many ships are there? Vex'tar asked weakly. Morrison consulted what appeared to be a clipboard. Local defense? About 800 active ships, give or take. Not counting the automated defense platforms, the orbital installations, or the stuff that's still classified. 800 ships that individually outgun our entire fleet. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of unfair. But that's what happens when you attack someone without doing proper reconnaissance first. Dr. Vasquez had returned to her workstation and was studying readings from the new arrivals. Oh, this is interesting. Captain Morrison, they're using the new gravitic drive systems. The efficiency improvements over the prototypes are remarkable. How remarkable? They could probably reach the Andromeda Galaxy in about 6 months. These alien ships would take roughly 40,000 years to make the same trip, assuming they didn't break down first. Commander Vex'tar was beginning to understand that he had made what military historians would later classify as a significant tactical error. Perhaps, he said carefully, we should discuss terms. Morrison looked genuinely surprised. Terms? Vex, you attacked us. We're well within our rights to consider this an act of war. But surely as civilized beings. Oh, we're very civilized. That's why we're going to give you a choice. The main screen shifted to show a comprehensive tactical display. The alien fleet, which had seemed so impressive a few hours ago, now looked like a collection of toys scattered around a group of professional military vessels. Option 1, Morrison continued, you surrender unconditionally, submit to our authority, and we integrate your surviving crew into our colonial workforce. You'll be treated well, paid fairly, and given opportunities for advancement based on merit. And option 2. Morrison's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature in both ships seemed to drop several degrees. Option 2 is we demonstrate why every other species in this galaxy knows better than to attack humanity without overwhelming force and extremely good reasons. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her instruments. Captain, if you're planning a demonstration, could you make it educational? I'd love to get some data on how their defensive systems handle directed plasma bombardment. Elena, you are absolutely terrifying, and I mean that as a compliment. Vex'tar looked around his bridge, noting the pale faces of his crew. In the span of a single day, they had gone from conquering heroes to potential prisoners of war, and the humans had treated the entire experience like a minor scheduling inconvenience. We, the Galactic Council, will. The Galactic Council, Morrison interrupted, is about to receive a very educational briefing on why they should have done their homework before sending you here. 3 hours later, Commander Vex'tar found himself in the surreal position of sitting across a conference table from Captain Morrison, drinking what humans called coffee and trying to process the complete inversion of his reality. This is actually pretty good, he admitted, taking another sip of the bitter beverage. Ethiopian blend, Morrison replied. We figured if we were going to have this conversation, we might as well be civilized about it. The conference room aboard the human flagship was comfortable, efficient, and absolutely nothing like the intimidating military spaces Vex'tar was used to. The humans had somehow managed to make complete tactical superiority feel casual and welcoming. Dr. Vasquez entered the room carrying a tablet and bearing an expression of scientific satisfaction that Vex'tar was learning to associate with very bad news for anyone who wasn't human. Captain Morrison, I've finished the comprehensive analysis of their fleet capabilities. How comprehensive? We now know more about their technology than they do. The engineering principles are sound, but the implementation is remarkably inefficient. With some modifications, we could improve their ship's performance by roughly 400%. Vex'tar looked up from his coffee. You want to improve our ships? Well, obviously, Vasquez said, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Your current technology is barely adequate for interstellar travel. If you're going to be part of the local community, you'll need better hardware. A part of the local community. Morrison leaned back in his chair. That's the thing, Vex. Your Galactic Council made a fundamental miscalculation. They assumed Earth was an isolated, primitive world that could be conquered without consequence. It's not. It's not. Not even close. We've been part of the interstellar community for decades. We just prefer to keep a low profile until someone forces our hand. But your technology is deliberately understated in most applications. We learned a long time ago that looking too dangerous makes people nervous. Better to let them underestimate us until it becomes necessary to correct their assumptions. Vasquez nodded enthusiastically. It's basic evolutionary strategy. Appear harmless until threatened, then demonstrate overwhelming capability, and much more efficient and constant displays of force. Vex'tar felt like he was drinking from a fire hose of revelations. So the Galactic Council just declared war on a species that has been quietly building the most advanced military in known space while everyone else was arguing about territory and tribute. Morrison finished. It's going to be a very educational experience for them. What happens to my crew? That depends on what you want to happen. We're not in the habit of punishing people for following orders, especially when those orders were based on completely incorrect information. Morrison pulled out a datapad and consulted it briefly. Your options are pretty straightforward. We can arrange transport back to Council space, where you can explain to your superiors exactly what they've stumbled into. Or you can accept integration into our colonial administration system. What does integration involve? Useful work, fair compensation, opportunities for advancement, and access to technology that will make your current equipment look like stone tools. Also, better coffee. Vasquez looked up from her tablet. The technological exchange alone would be worth it. We could teach you proper metallurgy, efficient energy systems, and maybe even some basic principles of not designing starships to look intimidating at the expense of functionality. You're offering to help us? We're offering to help you help yourselves, Morrison corrected. The Galactic Council's approach to expansion is unsustainable. You're burning through resources, creating enemies, and stagnating technologically because you spend all your time maintaining control instead of innovating. Whereas humans, Have been spending the last century figuring out how to make everything better, faster and more efficient while preparing for every conceivable threat. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not wasting energy on pointless conquest. Vex'tar looked around the conference room, noting the casual efficiency of human design, the comfortable integration of multiple technologies, and the complete absence of the intimidation tactics his own species relied on. What about the Galactic Council? They won't accept this. Morrison smiled, and for the first time since this conversation began, it wasn't entirely friendly. Vex, the Galactic Council is going to have to accept whatever we decide is acceptable. They picked this fight. We're going to finish it. But they have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. And we have better ships, better soldiers, better technology, and most importantly, better logistics. The Council has been cruising on past victories for too long. They're about to get a very unpleasant reminder of what happens when you mistake reputation for capability. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her calculations. Actually, Captain, the numbers are quite favorable. If we use the new manufacturing protocols, we could outfit the entire local defense network with upgraded systems within 6 months. 6 months? That's assuming we don't get help from the outer colonies. With their industrial capacity, we could probably do it in 3. Morrison turned back to Vex'tar. So, Commander, what's it going to be? Do you want to go back and warn the Council what they're facing? Or do you want to stick around and watch humanity demonstrate why we've been keeping a low profile? Vex'tar finished his coffee and set down the cup. In the space of a single day, he had gone from confident conqueror to refugee from his own poor judgment. The humans were offering him a chance to be part of something better than what he'd left behind. I think, he said carefully, that my crew and I would like to learn more about this integration process. Morrison's smile returned to its more welcoming configuration. Excellent choice. Elena, why don't you start Commander Vex'tar on the orientation materials, and maybe get him some of the good coffee this time? As Vasquez led him toward what appeared to be a comprehensive briefing on human technological capabilities, Vex'tar reflected on the day's lessons. The most important of which was that when a species calls something practice mode, it's probably wise to ask what their serious mode looks like before you find out the hard way. Behind them, Captain Morrison was already planning humanity's response to the Galactic Council's inevitable escalation. After all, they'd spent decades preparing for this moment. It was going to be educational,